You're watching Senior Support on your TV. My name is Debbie-MacDonald Moynes. I'm your host, and our guest is Alanah Deville, and she is with Canadian Hearing Services. We've been talking about technology that can help seniors and others that have hearing loss. And now let's, Alanah, turn our mind to some of the tips that you would provide for people so that they can live a good life and cope when they have a hearing loss. So what's one of the first things that comes to mind when I ask you about tips for coping?
Yeah, definitely. So it's very important to use whatever technology that's available to you, but we spend a lot of time talking to people about the communication strategies that they can use that would make things easier. So the number one tip would be to face the person that you're talking to. People often say, as soon as the person turns away from them, or if they're talking to them from another room, then they can't have the conversation as if they were face to face. So definitely facing the person that you're talking to.
I think for myself, that's important even. And I think that I read lips. I've had other people tell me they don't read lips, but I think in part, pretty well everybody finds it easier to hear and communicate with someone else when they're looking at the person.
And even if you don't read lips, you're still looking at that person for cues about the conversation. So are they happy? Are they sad? Are they angry? Are they giving you any other clues about, if they're looking at their watch or different things like that? So you get a lot of clues even through the nonverbal communication when you're facing somebody.
Yeah, and that importance of seeing other people, Alanah, it's come home during this pandemic. You and I both work in this business environment. And so often now our meetings are held with video components on Zoom or many other platforms that are out there. I've learned so much about this kind of thing that I didn't know before. In the past, we would usually do teleconferences, but when you're having a meeting, to be able to see the other people makes such a big difference, doesn't it?
Yes, and because of the technology, there's just a natural way that you have to do turn taking because you can't talk over each other because then you just interfere and then nobody can hear. So it's done this natural other strategy of turn taking. And it's also, I think, added another natural of where people are slowing down a little bit, which is another great strategy, just to slow down just a little bit.
I hadn't thought of it until now that you mentioned it, but that does happen in the meetings that I go to, and in groups of people that get together. Often, say a board of directors gets together, they work out ways that they're going to do the meetings by Zoom or other video platforms. And so turn taking is exactly that. It makes it easier for people to communicate. We're learning new ways, aren't we, to be able to communicate during the pandemic that hopefully we'll be able to carry forward into the future. I don't know many groups now that use a teleconference. Many of them are using this kind of communication.
Yeah, I think there's some real positives that we've been able to, it's forced us to learn how to be a little bit more creative, but I think it's been really positive.
Yeah, in many ways it has been positive. Now, if you were having, I know you do presentations in the community and you've done webinars for Discover Community Care and other organizations. What are some of the other things, Alanah, that you talk about as tools, tips, coping strategies for people that are living with a hearing loss?
So a couple of other kind of quick ones is instead of just repeating what you're saying, try to find a way to rephrase it. So if you're having a conversation with somebody and they can't seem to kind of pick up on what you're saying, it could be just kind of one word in that sentence that's tripping them up, that they're not hearing as well. So if you can find ways to rephrase what you're speaking about, that's a great little tip to use. Being patient and also having a sense of humor about it. So sometimes people can, they hear something very different from what was being said. And instead of, I've seen some people do this very well where they've actually repeated what they think they've heard to confirm that it wasn't. But it can be, you can have a lot of fun with it. I can't think of an example offhand, but that's a little tip to use. And of course, having things written down, especially confirmation for appointments and things, getting them written down is always really, really helpful.
Those are great things, and I know in your presentations you talk about that. When we're not having a pandemic, which someday in the future hopefully will be our new reality, that things will change back a little bit anyway toward the way they used to be. I know that you offer hearing care classes, hearing health classes, and I know that you would go over these and other things that would be good for people living with hearing loss, and in fact with their caregivers or their spouse or other people that they live with.
Yeah, I've been so fortunate to have such a great partnership with your organization over the years, and we've been able to provide these hearing help classes. And so it's really a crash course on everything and anything you would want to know about hearing and hearing loss and strategies and different things that you can use. So we even go way back and kind of explain how we hear and the anatomy of the ear. We talk to people about their audiograms, so their hearing test, and understanding what the audiogram actually means. And then we go into communication strategies, hearing aids, technology, coping, environmental awareness, and how you can kind of change your environment or be aware of your environment and how to adapt that to help with the communication. So yeah, those are a great series of classes that we're able to run.
Well, I'm sure that your website will put up information on those so that at some point in the future, people will be able to get back to that. I just, before we talk about hearing aids, I wanted to mention to you one thing that my dad felt was very helpful to him, and for those of us that were with him in a restaurant, it really seemed to work well for him to position himself so that his back was to the wall, rather than, especially if he had his back to the kitchen, or an active area where people were coming and going and jostling with cutlery and things like that. Back to the wall worked out very nicely in terms of boosting his ability to communicate during the restaurant visit. You find that helps people?
Yeah, definitely. Wherever you can kind of cut out that background noise or decrease the background noise will help the communication a lot.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground, Alanah. I know there's much more that we could talk about, but before we get to the end of the show today, let's just talk for a minute about hearing aids and a couple of things people need to think about when they're considering whether to get a hearing aid.
Mm-hmm. So the first step is to have your hearing test done, and there are numerous vendors and hearing healthcare places in our area that are able to do this. So the hearing instrument dispenser or the audiologist would do a hearing test, and from that they would make a recommendation for the type of hearing aid that they think would benefit you the most. So again, as I was talking about, if somebody can still hear in the low tones but needs help in the high tones, hearing aids are digital, and so they are created to match the person's hearing aid hearing loss, pardon. So there's a variety of different styles, a variety of different manufacturers. So it's really having a conversation with the hearing aid vendor about your lifestyle, what's important to you. If you're somebody that attends a lot of meetings, or if you like to go to movies or plays, really having a good conversation with them about what you do on a day-to-day basis, so that they can kind of match the technology for your lifestyle. And then I always say to people, just be really aware that there's a trial period with hearing aids, and you have a conversation with your dispenser about that, because it's always frustrating when we hear somebody who's gone and bought hearing aids and then they end up in their drawer, or they end up in their pocket and they're not wearing them anymore. So there's an adjustment process that goes along with wearing and using hearing aids effectively, but you can do that in the trial period, and wherever you go, they would be very happy to work with you to get them working the way that they should. You should be able to put in your hearing aids in the morning and wear them all day, every day. That would be the goal.
So if we have viewers watching and their hearing aids are sitting on their dresser or they're in their pocket because they haven't been able to get them set up and cope with the use of them, they should call their vendor and get some help with using it?
Absolutely. Go back and have them take a look at it again. Let them know kind of what you were experiencing with it. They can make changes to it. So definitely go back to the vendor. That's what they're there for. And right now the vendors are reopened. They're taking appointments, so you would need to call to make an appointment. Our audiology services, we don't have any locally from Canadian Hearing Services, but across the province, they have actually just reopened today, and again, by appointment only. So give them a call and get in to see them.
Well, Alanah, you have given us so much to think about. There's just so many things that people with a hearing loss can do or learn about. They can go to the website of Canadian Hearing Services and find out more. They can call your office. I'm sure your calls must be going through to you and your colleagues somehow during this pandemic, and just get some help so that they can live as good a life as possible with the hearing loss. It is possible to do that.
Absolutely. There's lots of help and support out there, and we'd be happy to work with anybody.
Thank you so much for Alanah for coming on Senior Support on your TV today, and having lots of information for our viewers to find out more about living well with hearing loss. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Debbie, for having me.
It's been great. Thank you.